Hey Ivan, how you doing? Thank you for attending today.
I'm good. How about you?
Good, good. It's been a minute since we've connected.
Yeah,
Quite some years, I would say.
I know, right?
Well, we can get started on, by asking you what would be your main objective today? That if you left this webinar with a new piece of information, what would be the main focus for you?
So I will say have a kind of a more clear path of how to approach uh, life on the future. I'm trying to do some changes or looking forward to some changes business-wise. Trying to pursue some dreams and the exercise you did on the previous section, which I was able to watch live, not live, but on YouTube, was very helpful to be able to link into my core values, which was an activity I started before but never finished, and now I kind of uh, I'm working on that
That's all.
development.
That's great. I'm glad that you found it helpful. Also, we're going to kind of go over it just briefly when we get going. And if you have any questions or anything, from that one, we could answer them now or even later. And it's all kind of tied together. It's not mandatory for anybody that's viewing right now on Facebook. It's not mandatory to do part one. It does help. You could start with part two and then go back to part one. It's more important than anything. Just kind of get the process down.
Yep.
Okay, so all right. So I'd say let's get going. I'll try to check the Facebook feed. I'm still kind of getting used to live streaming. It's like so. If there's any questions on there, I'll do my best to try to stop and go back and check. Ivan, go ahead and interrupt me whenever you find necessary. I'll still be stopping to be able to ask to make sure that you're getting the most value out of this. So
Okay.
thank you first of all to you and everybody out there viewing. We're on part two of how to live your values without guilt. This is a 3-part free webinar series that I've called the Unapologetic Life. So I decided that I wanted to be able to provide these free resources to empathetic and sensitive professionals out there, and just anybody could benefit from this. And a lot of the information that I kind of gathered was kind of not surprising in a way. Only less than 10% of the population has ever done any work with their priorities and their core values with that level of intentionality. So I decided to create these 3 webinars, and we'll be covering part 1 briefly, going back on some of the things that we covered to discover our core values. But right now, we're going to be talking about how to live your values without guilt. In this webinar, I will help you determine your life pillars, which are also known as priorities, your priorities in life, your main categories of importance, and how to be able to evaluate them against your core values. The core values, again, we did that work in part 1 of our 3-part web series. If you haven't done it, it's okay. We will still be going over it briefly. And when you align your values against your priorities, it's easy to be able to prioritize. It's easy to be able to align your life intentionally and live unapologetically. A little bit over the table of content. We're going to be covering what are life pillars, benefit of life pillars, common mistakes when we are defining our life pillars. We're going to go over part 1 of this 3-part web series. And we're going to be going into depth of solving, right, the fillable worksheets and the Google Sheets. I'm going to be providing you additional resources. We're going to have a Q&A section. And then we're going to be talking about the last webinar that is on November 10th from 10 to 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And it's how to bulletproof your SMART goals to thrive. So what are life pillars? So life pillars are the main focal areas in somebody's life. You're looking at family, community, work, business, all these main categories. For every person, it varies. And it's really important for us to get really, really clear on what exactly those are. How could we design and establish goals if the most basic areas in our life are not clearly defined? So that's what we're going to be doing here today. We're going to be taking a step further what we did in core values, but we're going to be tying our core values to our life pillars and going to teach you how to be able to, if you rate that your life pillar of career from 1 to 10 is a 5, we're going to define that 5 and we're going to move that to a 6. How could we make that a 6? Could we make that a 7? And in a very strategic way, we're going to define each step, what I call a ladder, so that those become goals. So this is a process that I do with all my clients. I walk them through it. So I'm happy that you're all here. There is no wrong or right when we're establishing our life pillars. This is a unique set of priorities in every person's life. Again, they vary person to person. Benefits of life pillars are very similar to core values. They reduce our stress. They manage it. They improve our decision making because we know what our priorities are and we know how to problem solve to get from a 5 of satisfaction to a 6. They inspire better health habits. They enhance our willpower and follow through, promote compassion, increase assertiveness, wiser career decisions and choices. You're having multiple jobs you're evaluating. How do you evaluate these? When we have this set of established priorities and core values to be able to look at life through, we'll be able to align our career with what works for us. Maybe that means not taking the high salary. And all those things matter because we need to look at our life and as different aspects and parts, and how does it all come together in harmony? They bolster our confidence. They create intimacy. Common mistakes that I see when I'm working with clients of you don't know what you don't know. So if you've never done any work around your life pillars, it's common that you might have some of these mistakes. So too many life pillars. So if you take subcategories and you create them or you are associating them as categories of life pillars, for instance, what I mean by this is I have a life pillar of business. And within that business category are my finances and my 2 coaching businesses, Strive and Spirit Panda Coaching. So if I don't have that clarity of that distinction, it becomes harder for me to focus because I would have to list so many pillars. Just like we did in core values, we want to group into subcategories within the main category. Undefined pillars, when we're not really clear of how we divide our life and where does our time go to. When we only focus on the past, when we determine our life pillars and we're not looking into what we want to grow into. If you're wanting to work on personal development probably should be its own category. That way you would really prioritize your time. When we confuse core values for life pillars or life priorities, this is really common. So you might have a value of family and you might have a priority of family, a life pillar of family. So it's important to know where do you want to, a value of it is there's certain characteristics about yourself of how you show up in the world as a family person, family-oriented person. That is different than how you prioritize your time in a main sphere of your life being family. So knowing that distinction is kind of key, and we're going to go through it. What I always suggest is just pick one place and make it either a value or make it a life pillar, depending on the importance of it. We're getting subcategories of life pillars. Maybe that category of business, if finances is so important to me, separate from just having two businesses, then finances should be a subcategory so I don't forget about it. So I could plan and create goals within. When I think about business, I need to have the whole full picture of what's included. Buy is when rating your life pillars as a whole. We're going to do some rating here of life pillars. And a lot of times we tend to see a glass half empty. And this is very common. And I'm going to be walking through my own. This is a great opportunity for you. If you did do, or if you have an idea of your life, of your core values, we could do this exercise using your examples and walk you through it, and you could gain that benefit from this. The other aspect is sometimes we have low self-esteem, and that hinders our discernment of self. Again, going back to, is the glass half empty or half full? Our perspective on life influences how we see it and how we experience it. Lack of accountability partners to help us see beyond where we fixate, right? Where we get obsessive and one thing goes wrong in one aspect. Let's say one of my businesses is not doing that well, but I'm doing well financially and the other one is doing well. And if I don't remember that I have 3 subcategories within my business life pillar, I might be just drowning, thinking that my life pillar of business is just doing terribly. That, if I were to rate it from 1 to 10, I would say it's a 3, it's a 4. When in reality, I'm missing the other details. I'm missing evaluating all the other subcategories. Not determining the steps to increase your rating, meaning it's not enough to say, I'm unsatisfied. We're going to get down. I'm going to be able to teach you how to be able to say, I have a value of authenticity and I have a life pillar of business, and those are not being met. And I would rate that a 6 out of 10. Then I could take action. Then I know exactly what I could figure out. I could figure out, first of all, define what a 6 is, define what would make that even worse as a 5, and define how I can increase that from a 6 to a 7, and from a 7 to an 8, and so on. And this is how, from there on, we would establish goals eventually, which is the last webinar in this 3-part webinar series. Any questions, Ivan, or?
So when we talk about pillars, for example, when I was looking at my values, which I haven't identified, I have a bunch of value identified. I haven't get to the main ones, but I started discarding those that I won't consider a value. For example, adventure, is that could be fall into a life pillar instead of a value?
Yeah, it could. So the best example I could give you is I have a value. I have a category, right? It's a category versus traits, personal traits. So values are personal traits.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you think about life pillars, you're thinking about the main categories in your life. So is adventure a main category for you of importance? Then that should be a life pillar. For me, I have a category of stimulation. I need, as a high sensation seeker, who also happens to be a highly sensitive person, it's important for me to regulate my amount of stimulation. So I created a whole separate category so that adventure and travel are subcategories of my life pillar of stimulation. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Yeah, that makes sense.
Awesome. Great question. Let me see if, okay, we're good here. Great. So this is a good opportunity. If you want, I could help you just to get the process going for you. This would actually add a lot of value to you. Would be we could define the main categories of your values, and then we could use those for life pillar, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay. So in our previous part one, discover your core values without overthinking, what we did was we defined a string of, let's go over here to, where is it? Values. Oh, wait, I have it under master sheets. So under values, we figured out from using our past, our present, and our future values. So we used our future self letter. We use our peak experiences. So a future self letter being 3 years in the future, we pulled values from there. And then we also did some writing assignment on 3 peak experiences. We divided our life into 3 main areas. For me, those were excelling in the 6th grade, moving to California, becoming 30. And then from there, we were able to extract our values. So we also had an option of using our assessments, personality assessments. These are the ones that I always suggest using. And from there, and the last step being, we asked our closest 5 people in our lives who influence us and know us well, a word to be able to describe us. From this place, we had a whole array of values that we string together in groups. So I had done this work already previously, and I kind of walked everybody else through it. We're just going to evaluate yours, Ivan, and kind of see where you left off. If did you? Let me ask you: did you do it did you do it on the spreadsheet, or did you do it on the worksheet?
I did it on the worksheet.
Okay, that's okay. So what we'll do is, let's see. I'm just going to ask you, and we'll like plug them in. But overall, where we want to get to is this step 7. We want to be able to at least have 2 of these defined so that we can use it as a good example of what we're looking at and define our core value, right? Meaning group A, that is authentic, charismatic, win people over, positive, storyteller, confident, and continues. That group for me is called authentic. And the way that I defined it was my natural extroverted state in which I show up in the world. So how we simplify that is how then we are able to go and move into working with our life pillars. So I'm going to go ahead, close this one, and we're going to let's just go here to the worksheet. All these resources are on YouTube for anybody that that hasn't. It's on my website. It's on YouTube. It's on my newsletter. You have the audio recording. You have a YouTube 1 hour recording, step by step walking you through. You have a fillable worksheet, and you also have a spreadsheet. I like the spreadsheet because I can move things around, and I like to geek out on it because that's how I think because of my engineering background. So I do everything on spreadsheets. We're talking today about, we're going to do, this also has a fillable worksheet. We're going to do our life pillars. You could download it here. And also there's a Google Sheet that I'm going to be doing on a Google Sheet. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create and duplicate this into the existing one, which is core values, Ivan. Was that what I named it? Yeah. Ivan, yeah. Here we go. Okay, so I'm just going to duplicate that, copy it into yours. So there we go. So what we have now is, if you notice, this is automated. So it grabbed all your core values that we just defined here, and it populated them onto the spreadsheet. So you could have
Okay.
up to 7. I like to cap people off on that. You could have more if you really need to, but I kind of really, again, it's one of those things that's just too hard to remember if you have just too many. So there's always subcategories. So we're going to go into these. We're going to do partnership and self-respect, because those are the ones that we defined. So what we're going to do is, the first step is to get the list of all the subcategories of your life pillars. So in this, the first thing that I provide you in the worksheet is a list of all of them: finances, community, family, friends, stimulation, travel, career, work. There's spirituality. There's a whole bunch. Some people say faith, mind, body, soul, adventure, fitness, college, intimacy, relationships, emotional well-being, wellness, nutrition, personal growth. There's plenty more that you could add. These are just some of the basic ones that a lot of my clients use, and overall, you're just kind of universal. So those are also, this is the worksheet. It's a fillable worksheet, so you'll be able to go each step along the way. Like I said, I like using the spreadsheet because it kind of does some of it for me, and I can move things around easier. So they're also included over here. So that's step 1. So step 1, what I want you to do is help me define your life pillars. How do you divide your life? What are the main categories from the top of your head right now, Ivan?
The top of my head, I would say wellness.
Okay.
I think another one will be career. And can you put them back up? See, can you put the pillars again? See what other one?
So we got.
I would say family.
Okay.
I would say relationships and adventure, if we want to add another one, but
Okay. So what I like to do is, because we want to make sure that, and you don't have to have all of these. This is just for, you might be somebody who doesn't like to travel, and that's not a importance to you to actually have it. So I like to just grab these, and what I do. Okay. I just like to go through them. So I would say, where does finances? So I start doing this. I go through the list and I go, where does your finances live? Is it career? Is it, I imagine it's career, but is that where you would place your subcategory of finances, or is finances a separate category?
I will say will be part of career.
Okay. So this is where you start going and you start inputting each one of them. Community.
Okay.
Do you have a life pillar, or do you have a subcategory of community? Where would it go if you do have one?
So community will be part of relationships.
Okay, good. We're doing great. So family, you have it. Friends would go, I'm assuming, relationships.
Yes.
Friends, stimulation, if that is something that seems to be, that's what I would put for myself as adventure, but it could mean different to you, right? So it's you could pick from these. Tell me the ones that you do that are part of your life that you want to include, and you could tell me where. So we're at stimulation and travel right now.
So I will say stimulation and travel will go hand in hand with adventure.
Okay. Perfect. And then where would you got career? That's what you consider work. So that can be a little bit redundant, I guess, or business. Any of those matter? Like any of
Uh,
those?
on the career, we can put business. If I'm looking to be my own, have my own business
Okay.
in the future.
Um,
Uh, Health will be part of wellness.
what about okay. I put there faith. Is that something that is important to you? Or if it's not a spirituality, whichever of those, if not, it's okay too.
I will say that's a separate one, a separate pillar.
Okay. What would you call it?
I will say spirituality or believer.
Okay. And so mind, body, soul. You got a venture ready.
So mind, body, soul go with wellness. Same with fitness will be part of what I'll put up. I will put under wellness.
Perfect. Okay. Um, you're not in college. Are you in college? No.
No, not correct.
uh, Intimacy, relationships. You have relationships, so intimacy, is that a subcategory that's important?
I will say that will be part of kind of relationship.
Okay. Intimacy. Okay. What about you got emotional well-being, so we that sees a little bit, you kind of have, you could, I guess it would go here. Body, mind, it kind of feels like it's redundant. You kind of have it, I think,
Yeah.
but if you do need it, you can just let me know, we add it, right? So you got wellness, nutrition, and personal growth.
Nutrition will be part of wellness, I would say. Uh,
Okay. And then
and personal growth will be part of, I will say, the career or a separate one.
okay, so then here, that's when you ask yourself, right? Like, how much time do you focus right now on personal growth? Or how much time or how much of an importance this is going to be for you moving forward? And based off those two answers for you is how you determine, should this be a separate pillar or should it be a subcategory?
I will say will be another pillar.
Okay. Is there anything that goes under family subcategories and spirituality and personal growth that we are missing?
Yeah, I don't know.
Oh, that's okay. So we could leave it for that, like what it is right now. So now we're going to go with your hunch, right? And you're going to ask yourself from 1 to 10, 10 being it cannot be any better. You're going to ask yourself, how am I living my life pillar of wellness? And you're going to think about the subcategories. You're going to think about health, mind, body, soul, fitness, and nutrition. And you're going to say from 1 to 10, 10 is amazing, increments of one, and one is, 1 or 0 is it, it can't be any worse. You're going to do that for each one of these life pillars. So ask yourself internally and tell me how what you rate it.
So is that kind of a current situation or uh, current rating on how I see myself on that level?
Yeah, where you are today. If right now I ask you, how do you feel today about wellness in your life, about your pillar of wellness?
I will say it's 7.
Okay. What about career?
I will say that's like a 4.
Family,
8.
relationships,
I will say like uh, maybe a 6.
adventure,
Uh, Around 7.
spirituality,
8.
personal growth.
That will be a 9.
Okay. Under family, it's simple stuff is probably, assuming you're a son, right? A,
Yep,
likely a brother,
correct.
right? So anything else that kind of goes there, you just kind of add, right? Those things that are important to you. Just so you have an idea that you kind of break it down that way. So on average, from 1 to 10, your life right now, based off of just you looking from a macro, right? You just looking at the main categories of your life, it's a 7. You're averaging a 7 out of 10. So now what we do is we're going to go and we're going to look at your partnership core value, which you define as a special connection. When you compare your partnership core value of a special connection to wellness, which is health, mind, body, soul, fitness, and nutrition, from 1 to 10, how well are you doing in this? How well are you living your core value of partnership in wellness?
Uh, so, for example, on that level, uh, maybe this helped me uh, do a rating. I'm currently having I started a nutritional coach
Mm-hmm.
uh, to take care of that, all wellness. Uh, I have a fitness routine. Will that be like an 8, or I won't say a 10, but uh, if that's my current situation, I will say, will that help me kind of rate it to?
So what you're evaluating, I can't decide that for you, right? Because that is how you look at what we're defining here is we're creating discernment. So first, what I asked you was just completely evaluate the subcategories of wellness. But then you're going to evaluate each life pillar against each core value. And what you're going to do is you're going to get down to the specific things that you said that matter to you. So in this case, you define, do I have a special connection? Do I feel I'm in a partnership when it's related to wellness? And you have to look at all the subcategories: health, mind, body, soul, fitness, nutrition. And from there, go with your gut instinct. How do you feel? How are you living that value in this life pillar?
Okay. So I will say a 6.
The same thing. How are you living your partnership value of a special connection, right? Feeling connected, right? Feeling like you're in partnerships in your career and finances and business.
That will be a 4.
Same thing. As a brother, as a son, as a family member, how are you feeling connected? Special connection.
We'll say a 9.
Relationship, that right? Community, friends, intimacy. How are you living this special connection of partnership?
We'll say a 5.
Adventure. How are you living how are you feeling like specially connected, right, to stimulation, travel, to your life pillar of adventure?
That will be a 5.
Spirituality. How are you feeling like that you're in a partnership and then almost kind of like you're connected to things, right? You're spiritually connected.
I would say a 7.
And personal growth.
That will be a 9.
Same thing. We're going to do it one more time for the other core value that we have defined. We define self-respect as putting myself first without guilt. How are you living your core value of self-respect, of putting yourself first in wellness with health, mind, body, soul, fitness, and nutrition?
I would say an 8.
Career,
That would be a 5.
family,
8.
relationships,
That will be 5.
adventure,
A 5 as well.
what about spirituality?
I will say a 6.
Personal growth with self-respect of putting yourself first.
That will be an 8.
Okay. So what we've done here, is there anything that you've noticed of how we did it the first time versus the second, when we rated it the second time? What is the main thing that you've noticed of a difference?
I guess the values are get to be lower.
Why is that?
I guess we are looking at the pillar against the value to see how we are following in terms of that pillar, how that value is kind of linked together. On what level I'm living that value when I'm doing or I live in that pillar of, for example, wellness.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So what's important here is, and just checking, do you have, we're probably going to go a little bit over. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, cool. So what I will end up doing is I'll help you work through these and then I'll still cut the video down to 1 hour. But I think it'll be really helpful if we figure out, even if you then come back and you define these differently, but because your next step is going to be really important. So you have a value right now of growth, and you also have a pillar of personal growth. So this is where one of these errors that we want to be able to be clear of. Growth could be a value, but if it's a core value and you also have a life pillar value of that, becomes confusing. So is this more of an attribute that is in every category of your life, or is this more a area of focus that you are setting aside time, just as important as family or career or wellness?
I think it's something I'm setting up outside now.
Okay. So if that was the case, then what I would suggest then doing is, or you could change the name of it, right? Like, what is the meaning of it? Because we go back to here, we would need to go back to empathetic, balance, and growth. What is this value? right? Like, is it growth? Is it, is there another way that we can name this and define it that wouldn't be in conflict?
We can go to like balance. Um,
And what do you mean by balance? What is balance to you?
so in that, we'll say uh, I don't know. Can we just remove that one for now, or
Yeah. Where would you group these together then?
so? I guess I will change balance to E.
Okay. Growth. Where
And
would you where would you put growth?
I think that will be another group.
Well, we're kind of going back to the same thing, right? So we're going in circles.
Yeah.
So you have to decide, is this an area that that for you is you live it in every aspect of your life, or is this something that it's a category that you're focusing specifically, right? So if you have a personal growth pillar, that means that uh you're continuously taking new, like you're reading, you're taking on new knowledge, or you're enrolling in school, like you're doing all these things that take time to be able to develop that life pillar, right? The same way that
Yep.
you have family and you have brothers and you're a son, all those things you have to dedicate time to.
Correct. Okay.
It might be something more that, if that's not the case, it might be more of that's not the case, that you do have things already. It might be something more that personal growth uh could be part of, let's say, a spirituality, if that's something, or and you leave the growth, or vice versa, right? So that's what we kind of need to think. But if we're kind of defeating the purpose if we go back and create another value of growth.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah.
So from the top of your head, where does growth go?
We can put it with group D.
And empathetic?
Group B.
Okay. So clearly we're just doing this a little bit faster, but this is definitely something you need to put thought into, right? It takes a little bit of
Yep.
moment of you kind of moving through them. So what we have here is, surprisingly, that your math actually worked out. It's actually surprising. It took me 4 years to actually, when we're looking at step 4, let me explain this a second. We're averaging all the scores of, wait, this is incorrect. Not from D. We're looking from E. There we go. Now it's correct. Okay. So you're off by 0.1. So your difference of 0.1 of how you just looked at your life categories that are 7, and you averaged and you gave a score, and then you averaged that and you got a rating of a score of 7. And then when you looked at your values, And this is probably going to change when you do update it and you revise it for yourself, that you do a little bit more diving into the definitions of these values and things, but you got the gist of it. What I tend to see on this step 4, the difference is when most people that I work with, it tends to be a -1 to 2 points off, meaning people tend to see their life worse than it is. And this is what you consider like a 3-to-1 ratio. For every bad experience that something didn't go how you wanted it in a day, you need almost 3 experiences to be able to overcome that emotion of discomfort. So that's very common for us. So what this tells me is that when you kind of end up breaking it down into so basically, if this is negative, if this value was negative, it would mean that you are a pessimist, right? You have a pessimist mindset. If it's positive, it means that you're an optimist. Sorry, the other way around. If it's negative, you're an optimist. If it's positive, it means that you are a pessimist. There you go.
Pessimist. Okay.
Exactly, right? Because it means that as a whole, you're looking at your life and you're saying everything is shit. But then when I ask you very specific questions and how you're living your value system compared to each one of these categories, you might not be feeling great, let's say, about maybe health and fitness, let's say those 2, but you're doing good in mind, body, soul, and nutrition. So when we kind of are able to evaluate the subcategories that are within our life pillar, we're better at making the decisions around the discernment around our core values, right? When we're capable of saying, instead of saying I'm living my wellness value of 7, it's a 7, you could look at exactly, if you wanted to increase this, your overall 7, you could look at the areas that you're low. You could look at your areas that you are okay. Anything below 7, I tend to highlight it because it's an area that you could improve. So what we do is we go and we highlight everything below 7.
Okay.
And then these are areas that you could make a plan to increase just 1 point, and then 2 eventually. And 2 and 3 are long-term plans. But increasing your lowest scores and focusing on those, it's the easiest way for you to tap into happiness, untap happiness, right? So your 5s here, anything that's 5 and 4, those are the places that I would put attention to immediately. So did I miss any? Let's see here. You got 4. You highlight these. Okay, and 5. And what you start doing is you go to step 5, and up here, you go wellness versus giving. Your life pillar of wellness versus your life pillar of, versus your core value of giving. Over here, you go wellness again versus thoughtful. And then you have one more, wellness versus partnership. Yeah. Thank you for that. So the next step you want to do is, you don't need to know what's a 1. So let's say look up partnership. You're a 6. Based off your in-depth evaluation of how you live your value of partnership in comparison to wellness, you don't need to know what a 1 is. You don't need to know anything below a 6. So I just go ahead and mark those off. So let's start here. And you would do the same thing for each life pillar against the core value that's red. So you have a lot of more room on these so that you could do this analysis. This is what I call a ladder, right? I could show you the worksheet where I literally create a little ladder for you. And what you end up doing is you end up figuring out every step along the way. So in this one, if you are a 3, we need to figure out exactly, put into words, what's making you feel like a 3. What exactly is happening that's making you, that you are a 3? Define it. And then I need you to define what's a 10, what's a 4, what's a 5. Actionable items, right? Things that you could take action. And this is also how you create that discernment that maybe you are aspiring for a 10, but you could do something right now that you could start increasing your happiness. Is this making sense?
Yes.
So let's say over here, giving, anything below 5 has to be ignored. And then anything below 5 also. So what we're going to do is we're going to figure out your partnership one, right? We're going to use this one as an example. What makes it a 6? What right now, where are you right now in your life that you scored, you wanted to, you wanted to rate your wellness life pillar against partnership core value a 6? When I
Can you
had,
repeat?
go ahead.
Can you repeat the question again?
What made you give it a 6? What made you rate it a 6? Where are you right now in your life with partnership and wellness that's a 6?
I guess it's the beginning. I guess it's the beginning mindset. I'm on the beginning stages of really be more consistent on wellness.
Consistent. Okay, so what would a 7 be? If you are right now at a state of beginning stages of consistency, what does a 7 look like? How do you know you reached a 7?
Uh, it's like creating the habit, or
Okay. So creating a habit, what would 8 be?
uh,
It's hard, right?
yeah, it's like I don't know if I would say consistency, or if consistency merged with habits will be like 10. Um,
That's where I was gonna ask you. I was gonna
yeah,
say, is it because I'm asking you a 7 and you're giving me a 10?
yeah, I think I'm struggling to. I'm thinking of a 10. Uh,
But there we go. Simple, right? So this helps because why we fail in our goals is exactly this. You want to feel a 10, even though that you think that the task that you're doing, you want to feel a 10, even though you think you're doing a small step, your aspiration, you're setting yourself up for failure because you don't skip from a 6 to 10, right? So everything you do from here to then, you're going to discredit it. So what this does, this forces you to be discerning and realize that I asked you for a 7 and you gave me a 10. So if we expand on that, now could you give me 9, 8, and 7? If it's habit development, it's what you want at the end of the day. How could you feel better about your progress as a 7, as an 8, as a 9 to get to 10? What are the actions you need to be taking?
Yeah, it's like a habit, created behavior. There's a saying about that.
So this is a good moment that there's this research done by Dr. BJ Fogg, BJ Fogg double G. And in this research, what we figured out is it's called a behavioral model. Yeah, and what I'm going to show you here is the first thing that comes up to my mind is this is what we need to apply. There's prompts and triggers that you need to be able to remove to be able to create habits, right? So these steps is what you don't know. So we rely on motivation versus ability. When you facilitate, right? So the equation is behavior, which is what you want. You want to develop habits, is the motivation against your ability to complete a task against a prompt or a trigger. A prompt is something that you put in place as a reminder, so it's when you you prepare a gym bag and you put it in the car and you put it next to you on the seat, your driver's seat. So when you get in your car out of work and you see the gym bag, you know you're going to the gym. That's a prompt. A trigger is when you're removing something. When you're removing let's say you're trying to be more fit and healthier in nutrition, and you just have a lot of junk food. Removing the junk food will be helpful because those are triggers. When you see the junk food, you want to have it. Yep. So when we rely on motivation, this is the action line. What happens is you start really motivated and then that decreases and it becomes harder to do anything. So when you facilitate your ability to be able to complete something, you are onto something. So what I'm getting at here is when we know that we want to do a habit development and you have this moment of through the ladder, right? Through this ladder that we're working on, you said, oh snap, this is a 10 I'm aspiring for, but I put it down as a 7. So then you could actually start saying, the first thing I would do is, right, my mind would go to research, habit development. How do you improve? That's an actionable thing you could do. When you start doing that, you start resetting your mind. You start changing your mindset. Then the next thing is, how do I remove triggers? Right? And then include prompts. This is just a simple, right? Because my mind immediately, I've done this iteration for habit development often enough that I know these steps.
Yeah.
But your mind will do the same thing. It will start wanting to figure out the blanks. So you don't need to know all the steps, but your mind is going to start focusing now on, I want to get to a 10, but what are the steps that I need to be taking? So that next time I would ask you, Ivan, how are you living your value, your core value of partnership, right? That is a special connection to your wellness, right? To health, mind, body, soul, fitness, nutrition subcategories, you could tell me, Neff, I'm doing some research on habit development and I'm learning. And I would say, how are you feeling about that? I'm feeling, you might be able to say, I'm feeling better than I was before. I'm making progress. Right? And
Yep.
these become actionable goals.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
It's a lot of work. Each one of these takes a lot of work to be able to figure them out. But when you do, you've reduced the stress, you've reduced anxiety, overwhelm. You know your steps. You know that if you're going to develop a strategy for the next 3 months, it's not going to be the 10. It's going to be the 7 here, maybe the 6, the 7 here when you figure that out. Simple steps that you're always going to be moving forward. And you have to think like a detective. You have to think like a scientist. You have to think like, if I'm in point 6 and I want to be a 10, what are all the steps that needed? What are the steps? Typically is research, implementation, analysis, right? You have to reevaluate if it's working. All those things are steps in a process of you to be able to figure things out. Just so you have an idea, I'm going to show you mine. Did I put it on? Is it on here? Yeah. So I did this like a year ago, and this for me was, so at this time in my life, I felt pretty stable in a lot of different areas. So a 7 is where I would recommend that you evaluate. Below 7, I didn't have anything below that. I have to do this again, and I could guarantee you there's some areas that I need to improve now. But so I took anything that was the lowest, so 7 and 7.5, and they were mostly around business. And I broke down exactly where I was, right? So improve finances, lower expenses. The second one, actionable things, improve pace and tone for videos, show up more confident and charismatic. Very things that 8 is a step that I would stay there and I would have to work. I would have to do research. I would have to do certain things, right? Just really clear on all these aspects. And then once you have that, the next steps are establishing goals. But the goals are much easier because you have delineated where are the areas that you're scoring the lowest. And if you focus on the improving the areas that you score the lowest, you will feel satisfaction faster. You would be able to increase these values faster. Here you go. Here's some examples of goals. And then we break those down into next steps. But these are SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, and time relevant. And when we do that, we end up having this step-by-step time, when, everything. What am I doing? This what we're going to be covering in our last webinar.
Okay.
Any questions before I continue? Any questions about?
So we do this, let's say, one time, and we put action plans. What is the time frame that you recommend to go back and evaluate if our numbers improve, or kind of the stage where we are? That's something we should do repeatable.
So it depends on how often. So if you establish quarterly goals, at the minimum, if you're doing it for the first time, like I don't do quarterly goals anymore because it's just too much. Like I know I have the system in me already that doing this maybe for 6 months or a year is effective. But if you're doing this for the first time, quarterly is important. So you do quarterly goals, and then you evaluate where you are, and you evaluate your goals. You adjust for the next quarter. It's the way that it's how I work with my clients, that it makes sure that in a year we could show the results, and all these areas like really improve dramatically, because you're shining a light. You're not no longer saying I despise my job. If you have a rating of 4, let's say, which if you're looking at this, this is a good example. In your career, when I asked you just about your career to rate it, you gave it a 4. When you broke it down based off your evaluating against your core values, you scored a 6.6. So you feel more pessimistic about your career in some ways, because for whatever reason. But when I really make you objectively look at it against what you say, who you are and how you live in those values, it's not as bad. And that's a 2.6 point difference. And that is something to evaluate, right?
Yep.
That means that's mindset. That means that you're looking at the glass right now. It's perfectly right in the middle. You're looking at it and you're telling me it's half empty, Naf. And through this, you create discernment. And when we're capable of be able to realize that it's not as bad, what could we change? And then if you, instead of telling me my career is terrible, you could tell me my value of honesty and thoughtfulness it's doing amazingly well in my career, but I'm really struggling in partnership and in self-respect in my career. And I don't feel like I could give. Those are 3 areas that you could then create plans. From this work, you could end up taking actions that could be talk to management. Like, you could find solutions to improve it. It might still mean that you still have to change jobs, but even in the meanwhile, you could improve the way you look at your job and how you experience it through actionable, intentional steps. Any questions?
No, everything goes makes sense.
That's so thank you for, by the way, so I kind of, the worksheet is maybe it'll explain a little bit about the ladder. It's the same way, but maybe sometimes visualizing it as a ladder, right? Like, I give you an example here of how to go through it. And then you have ladders for all of them, because that's what it is. And it's not about focusing on the 10. It's about how do you live your life, always focusing on just the next step ahead. And that's how you focus more on the process and not on the outcome.
And it's basically putting smaller steps. I want to be a 10 or get to the 10, but to get to the 10, it's a small pieces, smaller steps, pay out more than just trying to jump right to
100%. Yeah.
that 10.
100%. And a lot of what this is discernment. A lot of the work that I do, and especially because of my engineering background, this comes maybe a little bit easier to me, because we have to solve problems. We have to solve problems as engineers, and we have to have good discernment. How do I know? How could I create metrics to know that if the way that I'm looking at something is off? And by doing this, you could see that, and you start learning, and you start then catching yourself. Wait, no, let's speak with more property. My job is not terrible. These 3 aspects of my job are terrible. These 2 aspects of my job are great. You could do something about the 3. You can't do anything about all, when you don't even know what the 5 categories you're evaluating. You're just saying you're drowning in a glass of water. You're saying it's terrible. So that's that's kind of the steps. Here, little things here to remember. This is recorded. We were live also. I'm going to be sharing this with you, Ivan, and with everybody else. It's going to be on my website and on YouTube. You have continual support from me on text and email to be able to help you through this. If you need more, just like one-on-one a session or something, I have options there. I have a program that is a 12-week program that is essentially like the bread and butter of my coaching. And it's videos, worksheets, it's an app. It has everything that we've kind of gone over. And it goes from everything, how to establish a daily routine, all the way to boundaries, to high EQ things as emotions and flow state and procrastination. Putting that there. It's also giving discounts for that. And I also have a few spots left on my 3-month coaching package. And if you would sign up now, you also get the Career and Life Jumpstart program. That is a 12-week program that you could do it at your pace. So just additional things there. And I would love for you to come to my next webinar, which is Bulletproof Your SMART Goals to Thrive. We're going to be reverse engineering every goal into tangible weekly, sometime task that you need to be doing so you could track them. And this is how you know how you're doing in your life. This is how you feel better about your progress. Because every time I feel bad about I'm not doing enough or whatever is happening in my life, I realize is that because I set myself up for failure. Because what will take 3 years, I didn't objectively look at it and break it down into systematic ways that I could say, this is a 3-year plan. And I'm going to look at this for the next 3 months. This is what I'm doing. And I'm going to slice that in by 20%. Because the importance here is we learn through emotions. And everything we do is an emotion. Everything we do is seeking an emotion. So when we're cognizant, about this process, we're more strategic of establishing these goals. Last questions or any inquiries, Ivan, before we kind of close out today? Thank you. Also, we went half an hour over. I appreciate your time, and also
thank you for the time. I think was very complete and is I have a homework to do, but it's really helpful, and I appreciate your time and doing this as well.
Of course. I hope to see you in the next one. If you have any questions, definitely please reach out. And thank you again for volunteering to use you as an example of your life pillars and core values, evaluating them.
Yeah, anytime. You're welcome.
Take care.
Take care.